Pro, or we can also use Oracle um, Virtual Box. Or if you are a Microsoft guru, we can use Hyper-V. Have you guys ever heard of Hyper-V?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. So these are the three types of environments that we can use as hypervisors. Just think about it as a software hypervisor and not a physical hypervisor. Typically, we have a bare metal machine with a physical disk, right? So we'll have our physical disks, and then um, we'll go ahead and install our hypervisor on top of that operating system. So that'll act as our operating system. So this will all act as our hypervisor. And then on top of our hypervisor, we'll install our virtual machines, right? So we can install our virtual machines on top of the hypervisor within our bare metal machine. So I'm going to get you to share your screen.
All right. I think I can do that.
You can share your screen.
Do you see it?
I do. Perfect. Fantastic. Thank you. So I'm going to, okay, so you're going to share your screen. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to open a web browser, let's say Edge or Google Chrome, and type in the word Broadcom. Broadcom, BROA.com.
Mhm.
And you see the second link there, connecting everywhere. I just want you to click on that. And I want you to create an account, right? Create your account. So we are going to go to support portal there at the top and create an account. Yeah. So this is where we're going to register. If you do have an account, you log in. So typically I would log in through my account. And so you're going to register. Okay. And you're going to use your email. This could be your Outlook. It could be your Gmail account. It could be whatever email you want, your Yahoo, and enter in the text image. So the VZWJ.
And read that. It's so hard.
Yeah. And
V.
so it'll ask you for the captcha code. And then once you enter the captcha code, you continue. Okay. And then you're going to verify your code from your phone or from your email. So you're going to go log into your email on your phone.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to explain a little bit about what OpenStack is, and again, the difference between OpenStack and a hypervisor, because I want to make sure that you understand that a hypervisor is not OpenStack isn't a hypervisor. It's a cloud operating system that manages and orchestrates pools of compute, storage, networking resources, and that way we can interact with various hypervisors, sort of like I mentioned before, like our KVM. You said you had experience on Zen Server and VMware. KVM is typically a kernel-based virtual machine. And I'll send you these notes later on, Wayne, so that you have a copy of it. Is
That's
leading.
great.
Yeah, so you'll get my doc all the time. All my students get my docs at the end of the class, so that way they have a copy of it. Um, and again, that's KVM is a KVM is the Red Hat is the hypervisor for KVM. Or Red Hat's hypervisor is KVM. Ubuntu's hypervisor is KVM. So we're going to be installing an Ubuntu machine on our system there, and that's going to act as our virtual machine. And then the operating system we're going to be installing through code is OpenStack. So once you're in, you log in with your account. You should bounce it should bounce you back to the support page if you're not signed in, Wayne.
I'm signing in now.
And then you can log in and use your email and password. So I also have the steps available for you in the doc, so you'll get all the steps there ready to go, so you can follow along. Right. So OpenStack again it's just the code that we install. It's an open source platform for cloud, which enables our development and management for private clouds. There's different components, and I'll explain a little bit more later on. Tomorrow's class, I'll kind of show you our lecture part. Our first part, our 10-15 minutes, we're going to spend is on lecture, and then we'll go ahead and install our OpenStack after. But again, it's pretty straightforward when we talk about compute resources. We talk about object storage, and we also talk about networking, which is important. And that obviously comes from its ability, Wayne, to provide flexible cloud services without having the lock-in of the proprietary systems, right? So its function uses a lot of interlink services and components together. So each service will carry out a specific function, Wayne, and you'll see that when we go ahead and install that. So for example, there's something called Nova, Wayne, and that's a project for compute. So for instance, Nova is responsible for managing our compute instances in OpenStack. So it kind of interacts with their underlying hypervisor, which is what we're going to be using here, our hypervisor's VMware. Or if you use KVM, which a lot of companies are also using in a production environment to manage those machines.
Okay. So I'm logged in.
Any questions so far?
No, I get it. Yeah, I have experience with VDI and in on-premise cloud. So I just haven't been the systems admin guy who did all the steps. So, but
Gotcha.
I've been around it a little bit. But it's time to get more a little bit more hands-on. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's always good to get hands-on. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free just to stop me and say, hey, I have a question. Any confirmation that you need, just let me know. But once we're logged in the top, you want to make that a little bit bigger maybe. So in the upper left corner on the gray line below the header, click on software. Right? And then from software next to hardware, then the VMware Cloud Foundation, and then open that up so that you can crack that open. And then on the white flyout menu, Wayne, you're going to click My Downloads on the upper right corner. So it's in the white flyout. Yeah. Right. So on the downloads page, we're going to search for Workstation in the search box in the upper right corner where it says search for product name. And we're going to hit, and then the desired version.
Stations in here.
So on my downloads page, you're going to search for Workstation in the search box. So in the upper right search box, So type in Workstation Pro or Workstation for one word. And then hit show results. Okay.
I don't see anything other than this thing that says free downloads available here. I don't understand.
My downloads.
Do I need to click some of these?
Yeah, VMware. Click on VMware. Sure. No, but it doesn't matter. It's because we have depends on it's all divisions, so it'll take all 7 options. So it doesn't really matter that we're filtering it. But if we go to, let me see if I could take control for a second there. Let me get you started. I'm asking for control. You'll see at the top right corner there. Waiting for the approval.
You got it?
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I'm gonna open it on my side to see because I know that you're supposed to. This is how we would do it. We'd do Workstation Pro and then show results Pro and then type in Workstation Pro and then that should show results. Okay, there we go. So so as you can see, if we go back, I'll show you what I did there. This may be for like paying customers, so probably that search product didn't work. But if you see here at the green teal color, it says for free software downloads available. Click here. So we're gonna click here, and this will bring up our downloads, our results, and then what we'll do is we'll scroll down and we'll look for our Workstation Pro, which is here at the bottom there, and then double click on that. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're going to download the latest version. So I'm going to go ahead and stop, and then I'll get you to download the latest version.
Okay. So we're gonna do the Linux version.
No, we're going to download the Windows version because your computer's a Windows computer.
Right.
So
Right.
typically in a real environment, you'll see a lot of people they'll have like a bare metal machine with Linux KVM on top of it, like Red Hat. But because this is a hypervisor too, we're directly installing it on top of our laptops, like I showed you before, right? So it installs on a SOP, and it's slow. It takes less resources for it to run, but we are using it because we're using it in a training environment. Um, we call it a hypervisor too. So you see the cloud there on the right for the MD5 and the SHA-2. You'll notice like a blue cloud with an arrow going down.
Yes. Download.
Yeah. We're gonna download
So
that.
this is a Type 2 hypervisor.
Sure. Stop sharing your screen and put your information in.
Will do.
Yes. Put your information in, and then let me know when you're done. So as I was saying, it's a software we're using. It's just for training environment. I call that a hypervisor too. And again, there's Oracle hypervisor 2s. We call that VirtualBox. It's free. Back in the days, like not too long, maybe 2 years ago, just before they changed over to Broadcom, we give them out for free, but for a license, it was like $200-300, where students would purchase it if they wanted to, and it was available for free forever. Just up until now, they added this option for us with Workstation Pro 17, where we're able to download it for free without having to buy the license. So they got rid of the whole purchasing thing of licenses, so that way it was easier for students and people to train and use it as a training guideline, right? Again,
So
hypervisor.
I've downloaded it and I'm gonna
Open the file. Open the
launch
file.
it, right?
That's right. Yeah, so you're going to open up the file.
Okay, and let me. Whoops, I got something. Didn't want to do that.
So anything, again, will, like you'll see, you open the file, you'll double click on it or right click and run as administrator in a production environment for Hypervisor 1, or Hypervisor 1, right? So because
So I
we're
just go
using next,
next.
yeah. So this is pretty straightforward. You just click next, and I want you to accept the license term agreements.
No, good choice.
Next,
No.
click next, and you don't have to click on it. It's up to you. I just avoid it. I ignore it, and then click next.
Does install hypervisor platform automatically, or
Ignore it. Just hit next. It's up to you. You can it basically. Okay. So check for updates on startup. You're gonna uncheck that because I'm gonna get you to check that later. Yep. And then you don't have to join the experience. And then you're gonna put it on your desktop and start menu, then click install. So again, Hypervisor 1 installs, we install it directly on a bare metal machine, like I showed you before. It's faster, obviously, when you install it on a bare metal machine. It just takes less hardware when we run it. And we definitely use a Hyper One in professional environments, right? So, especially in a production environment. But because today we're doing it on your laptop, we're pretending it's your bare metal machine. So we typically call that a hypervisor too, because we install it on top of the operating system, which is your laptop, which is Windows 10. It's slower, it takes less resources, but again, it's just more for like CPU, RAM, storage. So it's not recommended for professional data centers. So that's why we're doing this in a training environment today for you, right? So that you have the actual OpenStack cloud um, on
so
top
finish?
of your machine. Yeah.
Yep.
Want you to minimize that. So you have your own account. So this is where you're going to go ahead and install like your. I also want you to go back and download VMware tools. I want to show you where VMware tools are because VMware tools is going to be our
So we want to
screen.
do that now. So how would I go back to dashboard, all products?
So you see the arrow there on the right on the white part there. So click on the white arrow there, the arrow beside VMware, VMware Workstation Pro at the top there.
Hmm.
I want to click on that and then um, so 36. So I want you to go back to my downloads. My downloads. Okay. I want you to click here for free software downloads. On the green info icon there. Yeah, here, click here, click here. And I want you to scroll down to VMware Tools. And I want you to download the tool because I'll explain to you what the tool does. It's actually on the right side. You'll see it there. Yeah, there you go. Double click, double left click. And we're going to look for the latest version, which is 12x, 12.x. And you'll see the arrow. We're going to open that and we're going to go with the latest version. Okay, and I want you to install the package for Windows and for Ubuntu. For Windows, sorry, because we're on a Windows machine. So I want you to install the Windows version.
There's several of them here.
For Windows, scroll down. For 64-bit, your architecture, scroll down. So there's one for Windows 64-bit and guest installer, that one. Okay. So that's the 12.5.0.
Didn't seem to like that.
That's okay. You got to click on the cloud and then that'll download it through HTTPS.
Yeah, it's still giving me a red. It's giving me a no-go
A
sign. See
no-go?
that
Okay.
red Ghostbusters thing?
Oh, I see. The okay, okay. All right, so it doesn't want to click on. Can you click on it for me?
I'm clicking
No,
on it
then
now, and it's giving me a red
then
thing.
okay, then that's the ingest installer. Maybe it doesn't want you to install that. Maybe we'll install the packages for Windows. That's what we're gonna install, the full package. So we'll install the first one. The zip file. So that's the tar file, that zip file, which is the first one.
Yeah, it's giving me the
It
same
should
thing with
let
all of
you.
it.
Should let you. Oh, agree to the terms and conditions at the top there.
Got it.
My
Okay, that.
apologies. Sorry about that. I'll put
All
that in the
right.
notes for you so you know that. Agree to the terms
So
and
I go back to
conditions.
this guest installer, the
The first
64-bit
one, the package, the zip file. We're gonna install. We're gonna
at the
install the zip
top,
file. Yeah.
at the very top.
Very top, the first option. Correct.
Okay.
There you go. So that should be downloaded. That's gonna go to your downloads folder. And you're gonna open the file, and then you're gonna unzip it, and unzip it in the downloads area. Oh, another thing I want to show you, I want to explain to you.
I need some help on this one. I clicked on the tools,
Uh,
Windows tools, and I'm here, and I'm not quite sure what to do with
Not a
this.
problem. So I'm gonna take control, and then I'm gonna take it from here.
Okay. All right. Let me give it control.
Fantastic. All right. So all I want to do is, what we're gonna do is extract all. Right. We're gonna extract all.
And
Double click there.
and
Should let me.
now press extract. I'll move
Yes,
the.
extract.
I'm doing it now.
Yeah. And hopefully that extracts. There we go. So you should see it in the downloads folder now.
Well, here's where it went. It went here.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll put it on the screen for you because it's on the screen. It went
Okay.
here. I guess
And
go browse.
then you want to show the extracted files when we complete. And again, that's going to install it in the folder. So it's going to create another folder that's not a zip file. So that's going to be unextracted, and we're going to extract. And we are going to replace the files, replace the files just to show you how that works. Right. And if we go back to our downloads directory, you'll see the two files here. Right. So one is a zip file, compressed zip folder, and the other one's a file folder. And then this is our Workstation Pro. So if we open up this, we go to VMware tools. This is where our tools are, right? We just need to use this as our, what I'll do is this is basically, we mount it. We're going to mount it to our machine. So in case we need to use it, CD DVD. So this is sort of like our mount to our CD DVD. So this is where this is where our image is, and we're going to mount that to the machine if we need to manually do it ourselves, right? So this is the tool that we're going to use, and I'll explain to you once we install Workstation Pro. You'll see it. You'll see it throughout the installation process. So we're going to go back to our. We're going to minimize the screen. We're going to double click on the workstation full. I'm going to go ahead and finish this installation for you, and then I'll show you how to install the VMware
yes,
tools.
here.
Yeah, say yes, please. Fantastic.
No.
I'm not extracting
Hold on
that,
a
so
second.
we're gonna cancel that.
You see the other? Okay, I don't know if you can see one screen or two, but
No, I see one.
okay.
Yeah.
So I guess we
What I
go.
would recommend, Wayne, is when we're sharing your screen, get our main screen where it has our icons there, our sound toolbar. So put everything on this screen that way, or on this screen, just drag everything over. That way I don't have to worry about it, and then keep whatever personal stuff you want on the other screen. That way I can work with it.
Okay.
So I'm going to close this. I'm going to move this to the middle. Just so that there's less interaction from you, just move everything to one side, and then everything that I use on this side, like internet connection, just in case I need that, I'll ask you to move it over.
Yeah, I'll try to do that.
Yeah,
The
like
screen
switch
that you have,
the main
the
screen.
screen I'm
Yeah,
sharing is the big one.
yeah, it's okay, it's okay. Because that way it's got the network connections, it's got the sound, it's got the microphone. That way I can use it, and that'll be my.
Okay.
So I don't have to worry about moving everything over. And then all your personal stuff you can move over to this side. But again, I make note of everything. So that way when I'm recording it, I'm recording it and posting it, like everything, all your address and stuff will have to make sure that I take that out. So anything personal. So typically what we do is in subscription environments, we use we recommend our students use credit card, right? For the free subscription, especially in Microsoft 365. So putting in people's credit cards sometimes, addresses people just to be safe. Are we good?
Do we need to press next here?
Yeah. So we're going to click on next.
Uh,
And then, are you sure you want to cancel? No. No. Perfect. So I'm going to click next, or if you want to click next, maybe. Okay. All right. And we are going to do the change, repair, move. Do you have it installed already? It says that you have it installed. Do you have this installed, Wayne?
what the
Yeah.
workstation?
Yeah. It looks like it's saying change, repair, or remove. So it looks like, okay, so let's change the repair. Right, let's change it. Click on
Okay.
change. It's not letting me click. I'm not sure why. And we're going to install the hypervisor platform automatically. No, we're just going to click next. Next. Not letting me click. I'm going to try this again. I'm going to stop control. And I'm going to take control again. So I'm requesting control. Just really slow for me. It's not letting me click and drag stuff. So I asked at the top if you can take control.
Teams here.
Okay, good. Perfect. All right. So am I able to drag it? No, it won't let me drag it. Okay, so I'm going to get you to drag this window in the middle for me. I'll just get you to do that for me. All right. So basically what this is it's a custom setup. You're selecting the installation and any additional features. We're going to add the console tools into the system path. So you're going to click next and leave it unchecked. I leave it checked. And then click next. So we're going to change Workstation Pro. I'm not sure if it's installed already, or because it looks like it says that it's already installed. Um, just kind of weird. Can you click on the start button for me and type in or search for VMware Workstation Pro and see if it's installed already? Yeah. So you see where it says App Workstation Pro? Can you double click on that for me? Looks like you already installed it, but it's okay.
Yeah, I have it here.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So we're going to cancel out. We're not going to do anything. So in the back there, we're going to, yeah, just cancel out. Cancel. I'm making any changes. All right. All right. So this is our Workstation Pro. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but we're going to stop the wizard, finish. Stop the wizard. And again, this is our hypervisor. Okay. This is our hypervisor. This is what's going to hold our on-premises, our branch, our data center. So this is where all our machines are going to be created. And can you make that a little bit bigger here? I'll make that a little bit bigger. So are you familiar with this program? Are you familiar with it?
Before, but it's been several years. But
No problem. No problem. So
yeah,
first thing I want to
we can run
do,
through it real quick.
first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the about Workstation Pro. This is our Windows 7 Pro version, 17.6.3. It's our up-to-date version. we're going to update it so that it's up to date. That way, we're going to check for updates to make sure that it's up to date. Don't worry about that. Just ignore that. And then click close. This is our environment. This is our library environment. So anytime we create a new virtual machine, when we click on this button, any machines that we create are located within our library. So by clicking on this, we can either hide or show it, right? So by clicking on that button there, then we also have our thumbnail bar, we call it, and this is our horizontal pane. So within here is where machines, you'll see our machines open. I typically don't use it, but again, it's up to you if you want to use it. Our first line of information is to know how to create a new virtual machine, how to scan for a virtual machine, how to connect to a server. If you already have a server name that you want to connect to remotely, you can connect to it using the connect to server option. So we can run an ESXi or a vCenter server, which is our appliance. And our ESXi is our hypervisor. Similar, are sort of like our hypervisor that runs Photon OS, which is a Linux-based code, and that'll act as our operating system for VMware. So they call it VMware ESXi, and that runs Photon. vCenter is the server appliance that's run within a ESXi environment. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with ESXi, but I'm vCenter server. But if you look at, I'll join this here. I'll just open it up. Open up a tab here. So if we open up another tab and we type in VMware vCenter or vSphere, and this is what we were talking about before. This is our VIP software. That's sort of acts like our platform for hypervisor, for our VMware hypervisor. And this is where we can create machines, and this is where our clusters will be located. So I'm just going to try to show you an image to kind of give you an idea, a better idea of what it looks like. If I can get no copy, there you go. So this is what our ESXi model looks like, right? So if we make this a little bit bigger, and this is our virtualization. So this is our ESXi, and this is where we can create machines and host, manage, and monitor our virtual machines, our storage, and our network. That's our ESXi. Our ESXi is also code-based, right? So which uses, again, Photon. So when you're loading the machine, it loads code. I can show you a picture, better picture. This one here. So let's see if I can show you a better picture here. This one. So this is our, this is where we set up our ESXi code base. So this is like our, you know, on Microsoft Windows, we have our server core and we have our GUI version. The two different pictures I showed you was one is GUI and the other one is server core based. So what you're doing is you're creating your server name, and you're adding your networking, and you're adding your DNS information within the environment.
So vSphere is like an appliance.
Yeah, we call it an appliance. Yeah, that's
And it's a virtual appliance in this case.
It is. It's a virtual appliance. That's correct. Have you used it before?
I have. I've been on projects where I've worked on it with a team of folks.
Are you familiar with?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I just wasn't the SAA, but I'm very familiar with it. I had to do a lot of documentation and architecture diagrams and things like that.
You have to draw it out, but you never touched base on it.
I touched on it. I was an emergency SA. So if we had if folks couldn't come in, or there was a contract that lapsed or something, I had to do something just to keep things going. But I wasn't a day-to-day person.
As an engineer, yeah, we as a cloud engineer, I used to is to make sure that we had enough storage. We used to create more virtual machines off of templates. But in our but as a college professor, I actually install it with you. So I design and install it with you, right? I
Okay.
architect my own design. But this is
I
vSphere.
guess when I say cloud engineers, it's a little bit of a misnomer. I'm an electrical engineer by training, but I work in IT. But a lot of with the government, you can kind of be around the tech, but not actually do the tech because you have all these contract staff that we pay handsomely, and we kind of let them roll with it because they know what they're doing and they get paid to do it on a day-to-day basis. That's
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right. That's correct. That's correct. So this is what I was talking about when you do the configurations. So this is our ESXi server core, right? This is where we set up management network, test the management network, make configuration changes, keyboard changes, system logs, and versus our ESX or GUI version, like I showed you. So remember, I showed you the GUI. This is the GUI version here for ESXi. I can get a good picture. Why is it not? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a new document here. Just trying to make it bigger for you so you can see it. Okay, so that's our vSphere client. And within our vSphere client is our data center. This is where we actually physically create a data center. It's not our, obviously, this is where we can create our data centers and we create them by folders. And within our data center, we put our ESXi, our nodes, and then we create our clusters. So our clusters of nodes. So for example, Notepad, sorry, Microsoft Paint. You open up Microsoft Paint.
I got it on my other. I'll be an assistant here.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
Hold on, I'll bring it over here slowly but surely.
No, no
There we
worries.
go. Yeah.
So typically, make this a little bit bigger. All right. So like I stated before, Wayne, you know, so you have your ESXi's, right? And then your ESXi has or bare metal machine has a physical disk, and it's got physical network cards for redundancy, right? So you'll have your physical disks, right? You'll have your two NIC cards, right? One acting as a static, the other one could be, you know, a DHCP or NAT environment, and then you have your two physical, and then you'll have your two disks, right? So we're going to be creating two disks. One's going to be your C drive, right? This is how we're going to do it, right? And then one's going to be your C drive. Let me make this a little bigger. All right. All right. So
Now, what are the two triangles?
the two triangles are not. They're physical NICs. So I'm just going to name them for you. The true, I call them physical NICs. So these are physical NIC cards, network interface cards. So this is another physical network interface card. And this is more for redundancy, right? So you have it highly available. Right? These are going to be NIC cards. So think of our machine, our bare metal machine that we're going to design in Workstation Pro. We're going to create two physical, but in a virtual environment, in a Hyper 2 environment, right? So that's going to be our kind of our data center. So, okay. And then this is our physical disks, and we're going to have two physical disks, right? One's going to be for our operating system, and then our other one's going to be for our installation files. So any installation files we're going to install on this secondary disk, right? You don't want to confuse the two. And again, this is more for high availability and for single point of failure, right? Because if anything happens, you know, you're stuck, right? So you're going to have these two physical disks, we're not going to name them yet. We just know that these are two physical disks. And then we're going to have an operating system that we're going to install on our C drive. And that operating system is going to be a Windows server, right? Or Ubuntu server, right? So we're going to have our Ubuntu servers here. And on top of that, right, we're going to have our applications. We're going to have our applications, right? So this is where our applications are going to be installed if we do decide to install our applications, right? So in our environment for ESXi, if we were to install an ESXi, we would install our virtual machine on this ESXi hypervisor, right? So the box. So we're going to have a virtual machine, and this is going to be our vCenter, right? And that's going to be our, like I showed you before, right? So that's going to be our appliance that we talked about where all our VMs are going to be inside of that. So these nodes, obviously, they're going to be highly available. So we're going to have two of these. It's a little bit bigger, wider here. Right? So you always want to have high availability and right, for disaster recovery as well too. To move that up there. There we go. So we're going to make this highly available. All right. And I'm going to, I got a little bit of a lag there, Wayne. I apologize. Something's lagging. There you go. There you go. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to make a duplicate copy just to kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about here. So you're going to have your two physical disks, your two physical NIC cards. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to make a copy of that for disaster recovery type thing. And this is going to be sort of our ESXi. And we're going to have tons of these, right? So we're going to have 2 or 3 of these. The more we have, the better it is, right? So for disaster recovery, you want that secondary, that second ESXi machine, right? Hypervisor, that ESXi hypervisor. So again, this is going to be your ESXi hypervisor. Hypervisor. Right? And this is going to be called 01. And this is going to be your second hypervisor, right? Which is a bare metal machine with Photon OS installed on it, right? So you're not going to have the Ubuntu server. You're going to have the Photon OS, it's called. And then with that Photon OS is where we're going to install where our appliance is installed. And then we're going to create our vSphere environment. And then within our vSphere environment, we're going to create our data centers. We're going to attach our ESXis or our hypervisors, right, to this application here. So this is going to be I call this the VIP machine, right? So this VIP machine is going to be heavily created, right? You're going to have a lot of cores, 128 cores. Let's say, for example, you can have terabytes of storage, right? Terabytes of RAM, right? And then terabytes of storage,
Question.
right? Yeah.
So this VIP machine, this
That's
machine.
going to be our our vSphere.
Hold on. Okay, well, what I was going to ask you is that machine vCenter, but it's not. You're saying it's something else.
Yeah. So this VIP machine
consists of what of? Can I have ESXi, vCenter, and vSphere? I'm trying to figure out, is it one of those 3?
vSphere. Yeah, it's vSphere. vSphere. It's called vSphere.
Okay.
vSphere client.
Okay.
So that vSphere client is what I showed you before in the picture here.
Okay. So, because I was thinking vSphere was the virtual appliance.
Yeah, this is an appliance. That's correct. Yeah, that's going to be an appliance. We're not going to install this for you right now, but I'm just kind of giving you the idea of how um, vSphere is before we get to OpenStack, right? Because there is a difference, right? Um, our control plane is going to be Ubuntu, right? And our code is going to be OpenStack. So we're going to install OpenStack on an Ubuntu server. vSphere is where we're going to host our vSphere is where we're going to host our VMs, and ESXi is where we can manage them, right? So I showed you two ways of managing it. So ESXi, this is our vSphere client, our GUI, and this is accessible on a client machine. So this is our GUI version of it. Remember, in the backend, it's all Photon. It uses a Linux based code. So it's Linux based. Everything's Unix Linux based. So that's what ESXi uses. But when you're looking at the GUI version, you're looking at the physical console, the UI, right? The user experience. So that's as a user, you're gonna see that, right? So similar to this, you're going to have your vSphere server installed with our clients. The more clients we have, the highly available it is, right? And this is where we can manage our ESXis. And then within our ESXis, we're going to store our VMs. And we're going to create it within our vSphere clients, right? Okay? Just remember that. There's two different ways of kind of using it. We can use it through the GUI version, or we can use it through the OS version, right? So which is our Photon version. But I'm going to show you how to create it on a GUI, which is more interactive for you, and not worry about how to install it on the ESXi. But in this instance, for OpenStack, we're going to use Linux to install it on our Ubuntu server. Okay, and that's something we're going to do tomorrow in tomorrow's class. So for today, what I want you to do is I want to show you how to create a quick virtual machine for our Ubuntu server. And we're going to go ahead and install the operating system. And then in tomorrow's class, just to digest a little bit so there's not too much information going, we'll install Ubuntu on this physical machine, okay? So in this instance, we're going to create a new physical machine. It's typically recommended for this wizard. So we're going to use the typical, and we're going to click on next. So that it doesn't create an error, you want to install the operating system level, typically just like a laptop. If you put the CD in, it runs the CD. So it'll create an error, and it'll error you out if you try to install or browse and put the ISO version. So for example, if you have an ISO of, I don't know, you have an ISO of something, or you have an ISO of like Windows 10 or Windows 11, you would normally search for it, browse for that ISO image, and then add it, and then that'll kind of act as our thing. But because it creates an error, because there's nothing to create. So basically, you don't have an image to create the machine. You still need you still need to create the machine, right? You need to give it cores. You need to give it CPU. You need to give it RAM. You have to physically build the machine. So what we do is we choose the will install later, and the virtual machine will be created with a blank hard disk is what you will want to do. You want to create a blank machine without an operating system installed. So that's what we're going to be doing here. If you put the ISO, it's going to error out. Okay, so don't choose this option. You want to choose this option. So we're going to click next. In this instance, either you create a Windows, and again, I'm going to create a Windows machine for you, and I'm going to create a Linux based machine, right? So we're going to create the Linux based, and we're going to look for our Ubuntu 64-bit operating system, because this is what we want our guest operating system to look like. So we're going to say this machine is strictly designed for Linux, Ubuntu. And then we're going to select the version based on the list, right? And in this instance, it gives you version 64-bit, and we're going to click next. We're going to give this a name. We're going to call this OS OpenStack Ubuntu server, right? and we'll call this 01. Now, this is where I want you to we'll take the engineering, we'll put our engineering hat on here. If you're physically installing your machines, because they do grow, they dynamically expand and they grow and they get bigger. So typically, how big is the laptop? Your laptop, if you don't
Great
mind me asking.
question. I will have to query it some kind of way. I don't know what the command is to do that in Windows.
So so what I want you to do is go to this PC, and it'll give you the bar, blue bar, the light blue bar, and it'll tell you the size of the OS. Mouse. Or we can go like this. We can go system info.
Yeah, for some reason I can't find my mouse at the present time. Okay, I see it on the other screen, but I can't seem to find my mouse.
There you go. I'm not going to cancel that here. Okay, perfect. All right, so right now you have a laptop. You have, if I can scroll down here, you have 8 GB of physical RAM, right? How much hard drive do you have?
Available space. Let's see.
And my next question is, I'll explain to you after. 7.
That's memory. You want physical
hard drive? Hard drive. So how big is a hard drive?
A great question. I want to say at least I want to say a terabyte.
You have a hard on this laptop?
Yeah, this is a fairly new laptop. I got it in Christmas. I've used it a few times. I don't remember it by hand, but by heart.
Okay.
But
okay, that's fine. That's fine.
There's storage
if you
right
want, like
there.
I said, you can just
we can look at storage and see.
Yeah. We can go to this PC. Go to this PC. Scroll down here, and this will tell us. So you got 237 G. So you got more than enough space. What I recommend is, what I'm trying to get at is, this is really important. You see the location by default, it brings you to your OneDrive. We want to stay away from OneDrive, because what happens is every time you do something, it automatically syncs. So that'll slow down your computer. And especially for performance, you don't want that. So what I recommend is, because we're installing it now on your laptop, we can install it because you have space. But what I recommend is, do you have a USB drive or a thumb drive that you can use? Thumb drive, that's free.
I do have one. I have to look upstairs probably, but I do have one.
Yeah. What I recommend is change the location, right? Try to avoid staying on your C drive, especially in this instance, because when we're building your machines, the more machines we build, the more space is going to take up on your hard drive. So we don't have, what do we have again? What do we have? 130 left. Like, we can install this PC, right? Because we have 130, 150. We can install maybe 1 or 2 machines, but the more machines you install, the more space you're going to need. So I recommend, getting a cheap 500 to a terabyte hard, I don't know, like, invest in something like a terabyte USB drive, or a little mini hard drive where it's USB, and then you can unplug it and replug it wherever you go, right? So if you want to bring this to another machine, you have all your VMs created on this USB stick, right? So that's what I recommend. You never want to save it to your OneDrive. You want to disconnect that. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the C drive, and I'm going to create something on the root of C. And then later on, what you're going to do is, when you have that USB, you can transfer it over the whole folder. And then when you open up your machines, you just change the location to the thumb drive. So whatever drive it is, right?
Okay.
Okay. It's a good tip. You never want to use your OneDrive, because what happens is, the more changes you make, the more it synchronizes and it slows your computer down. And I've had students, like, tell me, oh, it's slow. It's because they're using OneDrive when they're creating it. And I'll show you when we create our first virtual machine. So for now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go to this PC, and then I'm going to crack open C drive. And within C drive, I'm going to create Wayne's virtual machines, right? And this is where you're going to kind of drag it over to a USB with more space.
So
That
this
way
is only temporary.
this is
and then
going
I
to be
would later.
temporary. Yeah,
Okay,
you're going
right.
to transfer that over. Yeah. I recommend that. Why I recommend that is because of the high availability, right? If your computer is down, you lose all your machines.
Roger.
Sort of like, right? So you want to be highly available. And remember what I said. You have your operating system that's physical on your C drive, and then your installation files and your applications on your secondary drive. And you'll see that works a lot, and it works in tandem, and it works very well, right? So right now, what I want you to do is we're going to be installing it here on your C drive. So this is your C drive. Let me make note of that for you. Color. So this is C, right? And then you're going to have a thumb drive here. So this is going to be like your thumb drive, right? So stay away from, and that's going to be your physical disk. And that's the cheapest route for somebody. So if you don't have a server, with 8 gigs, don't expect to be, high class or, I used to deal with people with 4 gigs of laptops. So, having that extra USB stick will save you lots of times and lots of headaches. Okay, so understand you understand? Any questions from the C drive, thumb
So if I
drive?
have it on my USB stick, so when I want to, I'll be storing the, what will I be storing on the USB stick? What exactly? It's
You'll
just
see.
things.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is you're going to be storing, you're going to go to the USB drive, and you're going to store the actual virtual machines in that folder, which is in your USB drive, right? For now, I'm
Okay.
going to install it in this location, right? If you have
So
another drive,
when you say virtual machine, uh, so I know that, like, let's say when you take is that like a snapshot, or is it like a what?
yeah, so they're VMDK files, they're snapshot files, and you'll
Okay.
see it once we create it. I'll explain to you once we create it. Right now, I understand you have a lot of questions, but you'll kind of understand as we go along. You'll see it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
right now,
It's
what I
because
want you,
yeah, right. Okay. No
yeah,
worries.
yeah.
Okay.
So what's going to happen is exactly how I showed you in the picture, right? So you have your laptop, right? So this is your laptop, this black box, and then this is your hard drive. Right now, we're installing our virtual machines in here. I don't want that. Like for high availability, you never want that, because if your laptop goes down, then what? What happens if your laptop goes down?
You don't have anything.
You lose everything, right? You lose all your machines. So if this is your data center, if this is your branch, you lose all your machines. So what I want you to do is get a secondary drive, like a USB, where your virtual machines are there, and you can always move to another laptop and plug it in. You get it?
Yeah, I get the concept. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. So when I say location, right now you see the default location is OneDrive. I don't want that, right? So what I do is I would delete this whole thing, right? Right? But because I think I've already created it, right? So if we browse to this PC, right? And then Wayne's virtual machines, right? Right? And then within Wayne's virtual machines is where I'm going to copy the virtual machine name. So this is going to be my folder. Typically, I put your name, or I put the date that I created. It's up to you. It's totally up to you how you want to create it, but I usually put the date for training purposes, so we know when we created it. Especially if it's like 90 days, right? For example, on evaluation copies, so you know how when the date you created it. That's why it's just more for auditing, right? So I know, because I've created hundreds and hundreds and thousands of virtual machines in my life, so it's always good to have that there. So if we browse, we go back to our main folder in this PC, right? And because I put it in C drive, I put it in the root of C. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to rename it, that. And that's going to be my server, right? So that's the folder that's going to contain my server for now, temporarily, right? And that's where we are going to create this virtual machine. And if we scroll down to our second folder, right, we're going to hit OK. You'll see the location. And usually what's going to happen is all you need to do is change the location of your drive. So your USB will be E or F or G type thing. So if you have another drive or hard drive, which is what I showed you in the picture, right? So that's your other drive. So this will be E. Any questions so far?
Questions, but I'm good.
Okay. All right. So that's going to be your C or E. So we're going to think of your E as your thumb drive. So when I'm creating the machine and giving it the location, right? You want to keep that in mind. Okay? You want to keep that in mind. So right now this is your C drive, right? And we're going to click next. So this is where we're going to specify the disk capacity. And this is where it's stored as one or more files on the host. It doesn't matter how much you put, even if you have 150 gigs of 237 left, doesn't matter. We're going to split these disks into multiple files of 4 megabytes each. So your disks are going to be created in multiple files. So we're going to split that into multiple files. The more, like, I typically do not recommend to use, because it's a production, not a production environment, a test environment, I recommend that you split them into multiple files for ease of use and compatibility and scalability, right? So when you're creating these machines, if you're copying these machines over from server for storage, from one server to another server or data store to another data store, and in VMware, it's better to move the contents, the memory contents of that file. This is important. So when you're moving the files, right, it's better to move the memory contents, right, in smaller chunks. You're moving the memory content from one machine to another in a migration. Okay? Does that make sense? So you're moving the memory contents.
Really sure what you're saying. When you say memory, which are you talking about? The RAM of the virtual
memory
machine?
contents. The memory contents. The memory contents is
So it's not the RAM.
no, it's the
Okay.
contents. It's the contents that we're moving inside the RAM, right? Inside the memory. So it's the memory contents could be files, could be metadata, could be binaries, could be anything. That's what memory contents are. So it's better sometimes, instead of transferring over a 6 gig file with memory, right? Contents in it and with data, metadata, and whatever data is inside of it, it's better to take it into chunks, right? So it completes it and it's better. So if there's an issue with one of the contents,
So you're talking about the VMDK?
The VMDK, that's correct.
Okay, okay. I'm familiar with VMDK. So that if you say VMDK, I'm good.
Perfect. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. So there's different types. Obviously there's different types of files. Did I explain that to you? I'm going to send you something. I'm going to put that in the notes for you to look at. I'm going to give you some notes on that. That way you know what that is. Hypervisor. Okay, I'm just going to make a note of that for you. Okay. All right, let's continue. We're almost done. So, so it's just memory contents. That's all it is, right? And it's better to do it in chunks, right? It's better to do it in chunks than it is to do it in one full file, right? So it's going to go from one machine to one virtual machine to the other, right? So that's when you're migrating over. You're doing a migration from one machine to another machine. So that's what I mean by memory. So it doesn't matter how much I give it. If I give it 500 GB, doesn't mean that we're going to use the 500 GBs on your laptop. It's just you have a machine with a disk that's 500 GB, right? If your hard drive,
I think I see it. I think I get. So what you're saying is what we're creating is not at that capacity, so we don't have to worry about it.
Yes, that's right. So it doesn't really matter what we created. Even if we give it a terabyte, doesn't matter. We give it 1,000 gigabytes, doesn't matter. We're not going to use the full capacity. Just to install an operating system, I swear it's maybe 25 to, like, let's say, like 25 gigs. Or like not even, like 25 gigs maybe at most, 30 gigs at most, just to install the operating system, right? So it doesn't really matter what we give it. So in this instance, on a Unix machine, there's like Unix machines are small, so it doesn't mean that you need space on it because you're just installing the OpenStack. And in terms of OpenStack, yeah, because we're going to be creating these virtual machines within OpenStack. Yeah, you're going to need more. So even if I give it 500 for now, we'll just give it 500. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean that we're going to typically use it, but or 250. We'll just give it 250. Here you go. Okay, there you go. So we'll give it 250. So, and we're going to split that into multiple disks, right? So as you can see, by default, it gives it a 2 gigabyte, which is 2048. And again, so 1 GB, right, of RAM or space is equal to 124 megabytes, right? So when they were saying 248, so 2 GB is double that, so it's 248. So that's where that number comes from. So we're looking for 8 GB. So quickly on a calculator, what's 8 GB times 1024? Can you do that for me?
1024.
8 GB. So let's give it 8 GB.
Yeah.
Remember, it's not going to take the whole physical space, right? But
roughly 8,000 GBs.
So 8 times 1024 will give us the number that we need.
Okay, so 32, 16, 9.
8 times 1024. And that'll give us 8 GB.
Hold on a second. 16, 8192.
81
92.
92. So that's the number, that's the magic number we're going to enter in our when we're building our first machine, right? So we're going to customize the hardware, right? And actually, before I do that, this is just a temporary, it's just telling you what you created, right? It's just saying, hey, this is what we're creating. We created a 250 gigabyte split hard disk. We gave it memory, and we gave it 1 network adapter. NAT, again, I'll explain what NAT is tomorrow, but NAT is just basically a network address translation, which gives you internet connection. So that's also important when you're looking at that.
By the way, you can explain it, but I'm familiar with that
Say
term.
again?
I'm familiar with that term.
Okay, perfect. It's always good to explain it because you never know. That way it's part of our video. That way, business is going to be online. Wayne?
Sure. Roger.
It's always good for people who are asking and stuff like that. So typically, when we talk about NAT, which is network address translation, it gets your IP. It's behind your so basically it's behind your network. It's not exposed to your home network. That's what NAT is, right? So it's just behind your network. So it gets the IP from a DHCP that's sitting inside the workstation, VMware workstation. So that's what NAT protocol is. Only NAT protocol is what basically sits from and inside the Workstation Pro. So it grabs internet from my physical network or your physical network to give you an internet connection. So in my virtual machine, if I need to browse the internet, I would have to give it the NAT protocol. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In that, we also use to share the host IP addresses, right? So in translation, we have a public IP to a private IP translation. That's what the network address is. So we're translating a public IP to a private IP inside your public cloud or on-prem, right? Your public on-prem. Mm-hmm. Your private on-premises. So your private, it's private because it's strictly yours. Behind it, and then another thing I want to explain with that is you don't need to purchase public IPs for all your machines in this instance. So using our public IP, which is our PIP, we can give internet connection with the help of the NAT protocol to like thousands and 10,000s and hundreds of thousands of private IPs based on VMs, right? Based VMs. So we can give NAT to as many virtual machines that we want. Do you know Private IP ranges. There's 3 types. We're going to have our 10.0.0.0/16. We have our 172, which is our class A, sorry, 10.0. Then we also have our 172.16.0.0, which is our class B. And then we have our 192.168.0.0, which is non-routable. So when we're creating our static IPs, we're creating private IP ranges and not public IP ranges. Okay. We also have bridge network, and I'll show you what the different types of networks. We have our bridge network, we have our custom networks, we have our host only and our LAN segments. But in this instance, our network adapter, we're going to create 2 of these, right? And we're going to have 2 of them. One is going to be a NAT, and one of them is, we're going to both have NAT, and one of them is going to be static, and one of them is just going to be off of DHCP. Okay. And it's going to run on our VLAN environment. So our VLAN environment, we call it custom in Workstation Pro. So our first network adapter is going to be a custom adapter, and it's called VMnet, so virtual machine network. And we have, I think, 19. You'll see we have 19 of those adapters. And if we want to give it a specific adapter, sort of like VLAN, our VLAN 1 or VMnet 1 can only talk to machines that are in the same VLAN or VMnet. Okay, similar to VLAN. And again, if we have one machine, for example, in VLAN 1 and then another machine in VLAN 2, those machines are not able to communicate with each other. As long as they're in the same VLAN, we're able to communicate with each other. So in this instance, we gave it 2 CPU cores. We have our CD DVD for our ISO image, what we're going to do. And then we also have our USB controller and our sound card. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish it for now. So this is just a basic machine, right? And then we're going to edit the virtual machine, and we're going to give it some more memory to install the Ubuntu. So the Ubuntu needs at least 4 GB memory. And we're going to add a secondary hard disk, as shown in our image, right? So we're going to have our secondary disk, which is our E drive, and that's going to be for installation files, okay? So our E drive is going to be for installation. E drive is for installation files. Installation files, right? So this is where we're going to install our installation files. So when we're installing an application or we're installing something, when it tells us the location, we're going to change the drive C to drive A. Okay? Make sense?
We're going to do why we're going to do that again?
When we're creating a new machine on our virtual machine, if we need to install an operating system, if we need to install an application on this virtual machine that's not Windows or Ubuntu related or just for storage, we're going to install, right? When we're installing it, we're going to be installing it not on our C drive, which is our operating system, where it has our operating system files, sort of like our Windows, right? So for example, it has our program files in our Windows. This is like our Windows 10 operating system, right? It has our users at our Windows. So instead of installing anything on here, we're going to install it on another drive. So that's why I created the secondary drive. So any applications we install, any storage you want to save that's separate from the operating system, we're going to use our E drive. Okay? Clear?
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, and again, that's for high availability, right? So if remember something, it does make sense when we do this, Wayne. If your C drive crashes, right, your whole system crashes, right? If your application crashes, right, in your C drive, then you have your E drive that's there, that's not taking up the physical space. Right, so your physical space, right? You want to keep your physical space in your C drive because that's what holds your operating system, right? Which is sort of like your operating system. So without that, without that, then, or if you keep installing all the stuff on there, like your videos, your files, your pictures and stuff like that, similar to that, it would take up the space that's on your physical drive. And then that way we have our secondary physical drive, right? Or thumb drive, where we can have that those files there and those applications there. Um, and again, it kind of helps with the read and write speeds as well too. Within a hard drive or a virtual drive or an SSD drive, there's read and write speeds. So the more read and write speed you occupy on an application, sometimes an application takes a lot of read and write speeds. So we need to kind of separate that application, especially if that application is big, right? So you always want to use a separate drive for that, for that read and write speed, right? And that's another reason why we have an E drive.
Okay.
So okay, and so that's that. And what I'm going to do is show you how to add. So we're going to leave it at 2 processors. And again, the heavier intensive the application is, the more processors you add, right? I've seen up to 4 processors, but again, your laptop is 8 GB. It's an 8-core processor. You don't want to use all the core processors yet because, your computer's probably, you're probably working.
Yeah,
I'll
this is
show you
my
what I
main.
mean.
This is my
Yeah, this
main
is your
computer, so
laptop. Yeah, it's your
I don't want
laptop,
to
right?
max this out.
So yeah, you don't want to max this out either, right? So imagine this is like your data center. So this is why we're installing it. And again, a lot of students here that we deal with all come with laptops that have 8 GB, 4 GB, 16 GB. So you have to play around with what you got. Can you show me the task manager for me? Can you bring that over for me? Okay. So um, so like I said, you've got, and then your system information. So within your system information, it tells you how many cores you have, how many cores your laptop has. I think you have up to 8 on a core. I think you have 8 cores, your laptop. So typically to run a virtual machine properly with 2 applications, you need at least 2 processors. And the heavier intensive the applications get, the more you can add because they're hot swap. It's like hot swappable, right? So you shut the machine down, right? So you would shut the machine down, for example, right? So right now you have half 50% of your CPU utilization, right? So the more you add, the more applications are added and more background processes are added, the more the CPU percentage utilization gets higher, right? So you don't want to max this out. You want to keep this under 75. So if you're running a heavy or big application, for example, we would use a container, right? But if you're running a Kubernetes container, but if you're running like a huge, heavy financial or HR application, and you notice that your CPU utilization jumps from 50 to 75, Wayne, we're gonna need to shut the machine off and give yourself that extra processor, right? And if you have those 2 or 3 virtual machines that are running, you can suspend those 2 virtual machines and then give it the processor and memory that you need to account for what you're not using, right? Make sense?
Okay.
All right, so that's that. Can you close this for me or minimize this for me? It's not letting me. And I promise another 10 more minutes. We're gonna end today's class, and then tomorrow we're gonna install Ubuntu on this machine. I just want to prepare this machine for you. This bare metal machine. Okay, so we're going to edit it. So you see underneath the power, we're going to edit this virtual machine settings. We need to edit the virtual machines. And again, you can always right click here on the top. Close that for this is another option. You can right click here on the top, and then you can go to settings, which is another way. And this is where your virtual machine settings are, your hardware settings. So you have your 2 GB of memory. So I recommend for this Ubuntu is to move it up to 4 GB or 8 GB. So remember what we talked about. 1 GB is equal to 1024. So 4 times, let's say for example, let's say 4 GB is 4096. So we're going to keep this to 4 GB right now. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to use the 4 GB in the task
That's
manager.
RAM, right?
Your task manager. Where's your task manager?
Question,
This is
sir.
10 cores. This is 10 cores, by the way.
Okay,
So you have
got
10
question.
cores, so you have enough. Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
So my question is,
yes.
Are we talking? This is RAM.
This is RAM. This is virtual RAM. So remember, this is going to be our virtual RAM in our virtual machine. Yeah, it's not our physical sticks, like right that we put on.
That was it. That was perfect. Perfect.
Now, we have our hard disk, and now based on our picture, I want you to create another 2 NIC cards and one more. I want you to create one more NIC card, a network adapter, right? And I want you to give it an extra hard disk, right? So what I want you to do is to do that, we're going to go to add, right? And we're going to add another hard disk, and we're going to click next, right? And it's recommended to give yourself a SCSI hard disk, and then click next. And we're going to create a new virtual disk, right? So this is basically going to be composed of one or more files. This isn't going to be a physical disk, or we're not going to use a previously configured disk. So we have VMX files or VMDK files from this existing virtual disk where we're going to bring over, right? So we can get a disk from another virtual machine and bring it over to this machine. You understand? So that's what that option is right here. So the existing virtual disk is to choose it to reuse a previously configured disk. So if I have a disk, a virtual machine disk, right? So say this is our virtual machine, and one of these disks is already have an operating system on top of it. So it has the Ubuntu, the Windows or Windows 10 or Windows Server machine on it. We can basically take the file of that and bring it over to this new machine. With me?
I understand what you're saying. I don't know if I understand the concept, but that's okay. I do understand what you said.
You don't understand the concept? Okay. So no problem. So we're going to open up a new slide.
Because you're moving over I'm assuming you're talking about we're configuring the virtual machines with RAM, and we're configuring a hard disk for the virtual machine.
Yeah. So this one here is a bare metal machine. We're creating. So basically, in this instance, we're creating. I'm explaining to you the options because we need to understand what options we use, especially the more professional you get, the more novice you get, the more you're going to understand these options, especially when we're adding hardware, right?
If I could ask this mini question related to that. So does that mean we can just reuse virtual disks from one virtual machine to the other?
From one virtual machine to the other, yeah.
If that's what it is, then I understand it.
Yeah. I was going to draw that all for you, right? So like I said, if I'm taking this disk, I can take the file of this disk, the virtual file, because it's a virtual, right?
Okay.
I could take, not physical, and then take it over to my new blank machine.
Okay, roger that. So we can kind of reuse parts.
Yeah, we can reuse parts. That's right. It's we call it a mix and match, right? That's what that option is. Again, you can use that option. You don't have to use that option because we're creating a new, or you can use your physical disk, which is your own. And this is more advanced where you can give your virtual machine direct access to your hard drive.
Oh, wow.
But that needs administrative privileges, right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Like in a test environment, you don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is, because we're creating these machines, we can delete them and create them and delete them and create them. We can throw these out. Like we can reuse them. We can throw them out. We can do whatever we want. So typically in my environments, I create new disks, right? So we're going to create a new disk, and this is going to be a blank disk that's ready to go. Okay. And this is where we can install our operating system. So again, we're not going to use the allocated disk space, right? Your physical. We're not going to store it as a single file because single file becomes one big file. So when we're moving over that file or the memory contents, it becomes bigger. It's a bigger file. So the transfer might take longer, right? So it's best to split it in your instance because your laptop is smaller. It's just a laptop, right? You don't want to go too advanced, right? So I want to split your virtual disks into multiple files, right? And I'm going to click next. And again, this file, is created on multiple disks. So what happens is they're going to be created. There's 20 gigabyte virtual disks will be created using multiple disk files. So these disk files will automatically be renamed. So you'll see the number here, like after a certain amount, I think it's if I'm not mistaken, 4 GB or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to look at my machine here. So if I'm looking at one of my machines, 1 second. I think it's like 4 GB. So if I go to my virtual machines, and I'm going to one of my virtual machines, and I have this virtual machine. These ones are they start up with 512, and they can increase up to like my first disk has 4 gigabytes. My second, like, is my S002, has 3 gigabytes. My 003. So basically it kind of numbers them from like 001, 002, 003, right? So it'll split them into like 4 GB, let's say, or 40 GB, whatever it wants. And then it'll add towards towards that sector, right? So they're called VMDK files, and those VMDK files are split into sectors, right? So each sector is split into like 4 GB to 10 GB, right? And then it'll basically create like 20 of them. So like your operating system might have 17 sectors, and then it'll split what you have. Like, for example, a Windows operating system is 25 GB. So each of those 17 sectors will be split into either 512 KB or 2 gigabyte sectors. You'll see that as we move along. So I'm going to specify the file. So this is my first file. It's going to create my VDMK file. It's going to call it 0, right? So the more we add, the more files it creates, right? And I'm going to finish. And I'm going to change that. I don't want 20. To remove that. So I'm going to add another, let's do another 100. So if I create a new hard disk, I'm going to click next, right? SCSI, next, create a new virtual disk. And I didn't change it for you. So what I'll do is I'll just create another 250. Let's just create another 250 for shits and giggles. And then we'll click next and hit OK. So as you can see now, you have 2 disks, right? So one is your operating system and the other one's going to be your applications, right? Or logs, whatever you want it to be. And how we design it sometimes is we can have it for a database. I know for Exchange servers, we have it for databases, for logs, transaction files. For Ubuntu, we can have it for our installation files, right? Our secondary. We can have it for installation files of OpenStack. We can use our secondary disk. So our OpenStack is going to be installed on our second drive, not on our Ubuntu, right? So if your Ubuntu crashes, then your OpenStack crashes, right? So that way you have your 2 disks separated, and you could just swap out the disks, right, with the operating system already installed, because you're going to have clones. And then you have your secondary disk with your applications already installed. Make sense?
Okay.
Okay. And then we're going to add our second, again, adapter. We're going to go to add feature here, and we're going to add a secondary adapter. And we're going to click finish. Right? So this is where we, when we want communication, we use our custom. And what we talked about custom is if we need to communicate between 2 machines, right, within our VLANs, right, we need our 2 machines to be on the same VLAN to create. So for no particular reason, once we create a secondary machine, we can move our VM or VLANs, right? Right. And our VLANs will probably be the same, right? When we create our second machine. So right now, we're not creating VLANs. We're just creating a two NAT adapters. So our physical NAT, so our physical NIC cards, right? Which is those triangle pies that you see here at the bottom. They're both running NAT. So that'll act as our Ethernet 0, right? And then our second, you'll see our second will act as Ethernet 1, right? So when we go to our network connections, you'll see one is called Ethernet 0 or ETH0, right? And that'll have an internet connection. That for you here. Can you move that for me? I can't. Oh, there we go. Make that a little bit bigger. Okay. I might have to make this a little bit bigger here. Can you see that?
Yes.
There, I'm trying to get that cross there. Okay, so this is sort of, this will be our physical NIC, but we call it Ethernet 0, and this will be our static IP or our NAT for now, right? So that's how we're designing it. So our Ethernet 0 is NAT, right? Until we move it onto our or NAT also equals VMnet 8, and I'll show you what I mean by that, right? So you'll also see the VMware Net 8 given to our NAT, and this will also give us internet. So if we want to have internet, we can either leave it on NAT or we can give it a custom virtual network, right? Which is what I normally do, is give our first custom virtual network or a second dairy network card as VMnet 0, right? So right now these are going to be Ethernet 0, and this is going to be Ethernet 1. Does that make sense so far? So you're going to have Ethernet 0 and then Ethernet 1. By default, they're both going to be NAT. If we want to customize it, like I said, in VLANs, then to give it internet within our VLAN, then we need to give it VMnet, which is Virtual Machine Network 08. So going back to our virtual machine, if we go to our custom, and I'll show you the different, as I remember I showed you there's 19. If we go to virtual net 8, which is also NAT, right? So that'll also give us internet connection. So if we need to, if we have a Windows environment or a Unix environment and we're on our GNU, our graphical user interface or network interface, we're able to actually browse Mozilla Fox or browse Microsoft, browse the internet using Google Chrome or Edge, right? So that's what normally we would do. But in this instance, again, for now, we're just going to leave them both NAT, and then we'll make the changes tomorrow as we install the operating system, okay? So I'm going to leave this for NAT. And then I'm going to click OK. So right now your system is highly available, right? It's so used for single point failure, right?
We
so
have
you have a
system.
Sorry?
We have an operating system on a virtual machine?
Yeah, we're going to have an operating system. I've gone, it's over 2 hours. I don't want to too much right now because it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's fine.
So then what we'll do is we'll continue tomorrow. But for now, before we do that, I want to download it. I want you to download it first. And in order to download it, so we don't have to do that tomorrow, is we're going to visit a website. And I need you to go here. And we're going to type in Ubuntu. Let me see if I can get you a link. So let me get you a link there for you. So you have a link. Virtual machine, Ubuntu packages, install Ubuntu. So Ubuntu download, and it's by Conical. Conical's the vendor, right? Ubuntu is the software, the developer software. And in order to get that, right, so as you can see, there's two different types. There's the server, and then there's the Ubuntu desktop. So in this instance, what we're going to do is we're going to download the 24.04.2 LTS, right? And then there's the, for PC, laptops, and then we have one for LTS stands for long-term support. So this is the one that we want, and this is up to 5 years. It's free license, Wayne. So when we click
Okay,
on that, we're
cool.
just going to download that. There's different versions again, right? There's different older versions. I think this one is, I can't remember. I think this one is there's Jemmy Jellyfish, and then there's Jammy Jellyfish, which was April like 2022, and then there's the Noble Noombat, which is 24.04 LTS. So right now we're actually on as of October we're on Ocular Oreo, and that supports up until July of this year. But with the one that we're downloading right now, we're going to be downloading the LTS, the Noble Noombat, and that supports up to like that 2029. So we have about 5 years of almost 4 more years of support. And this is the ISO image, right? So this ISO image, again, you're more than welcome to test it if you want. You can create your own and test it as testing purposes. But what I recommend is if you want to install it. So you see the CD DVD SATA, right? You're going to use the ISO image file, and you're going to browse for that file. So you're going to go to your downloads, and you're going to wait for the ISO. And then once that ISO appears, you're going to click on it, and it's going to show up in the file name box, and then you just click open. So as soon as you turn on your power on your virtual machine, it'll boot up into your ISO, your Ubuntu, and that's where we're going to go ahead and install the operating system. Okay.
Okay, we'll pick that up next time.
Yeah, we'll
so
pick
how
it
do
up
you
next
feel
time.
about
Yep.
I know we have a class tomorrow.
Yeah.
How do you feel about possibly doing this on Wednesday as opposed to tomorrow?
So I'm going to stop the recording for now. I'm going to stop the recording and the transcript, and
Roger.
we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Give me 1 second. And